Hello and welcome to your $1,400 stimulus check and stimulus package and paycheck protection update. We have a ton to cover here. With stimulus checks, we have a very likely vote today in the House, so we're going to cover where exactly we're at with that. We have some clarification on the paycheck protection program, a little bit of fuzziness still, but some good news there with the PPP. And then at the end, I'm going to cover a way that you can save some money with your car insurance that I just came across, and I needed to share this because, you know, who doesn't want to save some additional money? So starting right off where the stimulus bill stands right now, there's still a lot of contention back and forth with certain items in the stimulus bill, you know, minimum wage, state and local government funding, a lot of contention given the fact that we have a vote in the House today. It doesn't really add up that there's this much disagreement, but yet we're voting today. Usually things are kind of squared away before these votes happen. But I guess that's what we can expect when a vote is pushed through like this with budget reconciliation. So a vote is scheduled today in the House. It's very likely going to happen later on in this evening. It could potentially run for many hours. I mean, sometimes these things, I remember the HEROES Act, that thing was on the floor for like 6 hours and it went till like 9 p.m. Pacific time, which is like midnight Eastern time. I mean, they can run a long time. Some have say it may even extend into the weekend, so we might not have a result today, but I'll let you know as soon as we have a result on that House bill. There's also a pretty fairly firm deadline to get that thing passed. That's because of unemployment benefits. So the current unemployment boost expire March 14th. And if a stimulus bill isn't passed and in effect before that, this is going to mean a lapse in coverage for 11 million people. So there's a very time-sensitive deadline here. And then after the bill gets passed in the House, it's going to then go to the Senate, which has way more complicated budget reconciliation bills. And what we might see is the Senate draft up their own budget bill, pass that, and then it may have to go back to the House and then to the president. Otherwise, we'll see that House bill passed to the Senate and then to the president. But I think likely there's going to be some tweaks in the Senate. So that kind of makes the time crunch even more imminent here to get everything in order, to get things passed before unemployment expires if they're trying to get this thing done. So it's going to be an exciting couple weeks here. Something that I also thought was interesting is I came across how much funding is left unspent from the last two stimulus bills, you know, the CARES Act and the stimulus bill in last December. So $4 trillion in relief has been passed within the last 12 months. $1 trillion of that is still left unspent. Half of that $1 trillion is from the CARES Act, and most of what's left from the CARES Act is longer term programs that just haven't quite, the programs haven't run out yet. You know, things like Medicaid spending, the EIDL loan program, the Main Street lending program, which wasn't really utilized that much. And then still 50% of the December stimulus bill is left completely unspent. So money left there is largely remaining funds for the Paycheck Protection Program, which still has tons of funding utilized. We're going to get into PPP news in just a little bit. Funds for those who need to file taxes in order to receive their stimulus checks. So there's a lot of people who just didn't receive a stimulus check, either deposited into their bank account or they didn't receive it by mail, and then they'll have to receive that on their tax return. So there's a ton of funding left for that. And then also there's funding left for the unemployment boost that extend through mid-March. All right, now let's get into the paycheck protection news. This is my favorite topic to cover. I mean, favorite because I just really like small businesses and I want to make sure everyone who can get this relief gets this darn relief. So I have some good news here. And like I said, still a little bit of fuzziness. So let's start with the good news. I like starting with the good news. It's looking like those who have already received a PPP loan using their net income, their line 31 calculations, will very likely be able to receive the additional amounts based on gross income. So up until literally this week, everyone just thought, okay, line 31, net income, I'm going to use that total on my tax return, divide that by 12, multiply that by 2.5, and that's going to be my PPP loan. And then we saw the gross income calculation come into play this week, which is line 7. And for most like solo operators, independent contractors, this means a much larger forgivable stimulus loan. You can almost even just think of it as a grant. And for some people who have negative net income, it's going to mean the difference between getting this loan or not. Well, the good news is it seems like if you got that loan based on net income, odds are you're going to be able to get some kind of additional boost based on gross income later. So on this, Keith Hall, who's the president of the National Association for the Self-Employed, said, and this is a direct quote from him, he said, "I'm extremely optimistic that even if an application is already in with that new calculation, the gross income versus the net income, the new calculation will apply to those applications as well. I think there will be a process." So this isn't, of course, official guidance, like it's not on, SBA ledgers, but this makes me feel so much better about it because I was just like dreading to have to present news saying, well, if you already got your loan, then, I'm sorry. So I think there's going to be some process, and that makes sense because if you think about the millions of people who would be just in an absolute uproar about having to use net income and not being able to recalculate it, I'm just really glad that there's certain key people and people familiar with the situation who are saying we can likely expect that. Of course, it's not 100% official, but I'm glad it's leaning that way. And another piece of good news, I've seen some similar quotes stating that the March 31st deadline to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program will very likely be extended as well. So, we're getting right into the 11th hour here as far as applying for the PPP program, especially with this many changes. I would not be surprised to see that deadline pushed at least a couple months. Maybe before the next stimulus bill is passed, but for sure, once that stimulus bill is passed, it would at least be a part of that. What we don't have specifics on still is the line 7 gross income calculation and when this is going to actually go into effect. Now, I keep getting comments on, okay, I've used the Womply link, but they're not letting me use the line 7 gross income calculation. They are waiting. They have the calculations ready, but they're waiting for the guidance to actually change. There's some confusion here. Yes, there's going to be a change, but we don't know when. So Womply is just sitting there like, okay, we got this ready. We want to make this thing go live. Trust me, they want it to go live because that just means more people can apply. I want it to go live. I will let you know as soon as they know and I know. And as soon as the application is live and you can use gross income calculations, I will. I've been talking consistently with them. They are completely aware with this situation. Some are saying that this will go into effect March 1st. Some are saying it's going to be a little bit later in March. Frankly, I haven't seen official guidance on anything here, and I've requested a million people to send me guidance on this who say March. I have yet to receive anything, but it would make sense at this point that it's sometime in March. We're expected to hear an answer to this sometime today, but of course I don't want to guarantee that either. Just make sure you're subscribed and I will let you know as soon as I know anything. Turn on that notification bell as well. And then addressing another question that I've been receiving a lot is where I sit on this application. I don't think it's going to hurt to start your application just to make sure you have all the correct paperwork, become familiar with the application. If you already applied, also, I would not lose sleep about the calculations yet either. I think there's going to be some kind of appeal process. It just simply would not make sense to just, depending on your apply date, give certain people more money and certain other people less money. It just would not make sense to me. I would not lose sleep over this yet. There's no sense in worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. I'm not worrying about this yet. I don't think that you should worry about this yet either. If it comes to fruition, we can worry about it at that point, and then Congress can see this uproar and then, probably vote a change later. So just don't worry yet. Another thing that I wanted to point out is hold off on forgiveness. I've been saying this for a while, but I just want to reiterate it again. There's plenty of time to apply for forgiveness on your PPP loan. I would just hold off, both because of the calculation rules, because we'll probably see these calculation rules change, and because I think that PPP forgiveness is just going to get easier and easier. Now, if you already applied for forgiveness, I wouldn't worry a whole lot either that you won't be able to bump up your loan size potentially based on gross income, but I just think it might be a little bit easier if you just hold off on forgiveness because there's just no rush. So I would just hold off on that. So one additional thing that I was reading up on that I thought was really interesting is how you could potentially get a few extra bucks in your bank account or save some money with your car insurance. So this year, people have been driving, of course, way less than ever because, most people are just working from home, or at least a lot of people are working from home. Because of this, insurance companies are making way more profit than ever because people are driving less and getting in fewer accidents. I saw a stat that was like, there was more than a 30% reduction in auto accidents in the last year. Crazy. But because of this, insurance companies are making way more money. So some insurance companies are automatically paying their customers just like a credit on their account. Because they're making so much money, they shouldn't charge people quite as much because fewer people are driving. Some companies aren't. So here's what you should do to potentially just earn some more money or save some money on your insurance. Call your insurance company if you've been driving far less, let's say you're working from home, and just request a credit or a back pay or some kind of correction on your bill because you haven't been driving. A lot of times for a lot of companies, all you're gonna have to do is request this and they're gonna give you that. Now, if that doesn't work, there's a few options you can still do to either save money or receive some kind of credit. So here's a few options. The first one is use a different company. Now, I've done this before. Shop around for quotes, adjust your current mileage, which is probably way less driving, and just get a quote. What I did was I got a quote from a different insurance company and then told that to my current insurance company, and they dropped my rate down to the quote because they would rather just keep that customer. So you can potentially get a cheaper quote, which is really easy to switch insurance. Or you could drop additional coverage that you're just not using right now. Like maybe you have additional coverage that covers like a rental car if your car breaks down. Well, if you're not driving your car, it's probably not going to break down. Another thing you could do is raise your deductible. If your deductible is higher, then your rates go down. So again, if you're not driving, you don't really need a lower deductible. So just a few ways that you could potentially earn a couple extra bucks or save some bucks. And that's my goal here, to news that makes you money. That's my goal. So I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.